Sunday night, a Russian rocket will carry a Houston astronaut into space.
He'll be on board a Russian space capsule because the U.S. no longer has a manned space vehicle.
KHOU 11 News reporter Jeremy Desel traveled to Kazakhstan with the team from NASA to give us an inside look at the new reality for U.S. space travel.
More than 50 years ago, just 100 feet away is where the first human went to space. Now, on this Soyuz rocket, Dan Burbank will be next.
Any steps here are a walk into history.
It's pretty amazing just to be walking on this ground, isn't it?
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. To think this launch pad is where Yuri Gagarin launched from is absolutely phenomenal.
50 years later, the design hasn't changed much, still towed by rail 2 miles and lifted to vertical on this ground. For the longest time, in secret. Now, 2 flags fly in cooperation.
Here we are in a little blink of time when we're actually able to do this.
Steve Robinson has seen all of the Earth from orbit, his ride, the shuttle, but he's never been here before until now.
The fact that this is our only way to go, does that make it more powerful to be here?
Yeah, sure does. Yeah, this is it. This isn't one of them. This is it.
Standing tall, nothing else around for miles. It may seem desolate, like the end of the Earth. But Dan Burbank, the man hitching this ride with the Russians, has a different view of the planet, even from this remote spot.
I think it's too small for the human species. I think humans, by their very nature, are outward looking, and I think it's in our destiny to leave this planet ultimately and to go other places.
Starting from here. Keeping maybe the closest eye on the process and wanting to learn all they can about the rocket is Dan Burbank's family, his wife Rosalind, daughter Emily, and son Daniel. This rocket should have been here in September, but a similar launch failed. Its capsule didn't make it. It's been a rush by the Russians to find and solve the problem to American satisfaction.
I can't say enough about the Russian preparation for this launch. They've done a great job of being prepared. They've looked at everything thoroughly. They're ready to go.
It's just 3 days now with Soyuz poised on the pad, ready to launch and take Dan Burbank to space. The only way that we have to get there, again, at least for now. In Baikonur, Kazakhstan, Jeremy Desel, KHOU 11 News.
In Kazakhstan, it's 5:32 in the morning right now. They are 12 hours ahead of us. The launch is scheduled for 10:14 tonight Houston time, and we will be carrying it live. Jeremy now shows us what the crew is doing to prepare for tonight's liftoff.
After a long delay and nearly 14 days here in Kazakhstan for the crew of Expedition 2930, the waiting has paid off, and it is nearly time for liftoff.
For the crew of Soyuz, it's been an early morning wake-up call at 1:30 a.m. here. After medical checks, they emerge from quarantine for the first time in a week. Russian traditions first, then on the way. A light snow covers the ground. The bitter cold, no match for the excitement of the crowd. For the crew of Soyuz, it's been an early morning wake-up call, 1:30 a.m. here.
Feel very good about the work that's been done on the rocket, and we're ready to go.
A long night for other reasons for the astronaut's wife, Rosalind Burbank. Her husband will be in space at least 4 months, but the waiting is over.
It's actually nice to get to this part. We're ready.
That much closer to coming home.
Back. That's true.
Only we got a few minutes with the family in the stressful hours before liftoff. Dan Burbank will soon be in space. Not his first trip, but definitely his longest.
It's actually very hard to believe, but it's been a fantastic experience.
Even to veteran space flyers like Houston resident and NASA astronaut Steve Robinson, the history of this site, the place where the first human launched to space, Yuri Gagarin, can't be missed.
I think everybody who's ever flown in space has thought, I hope a lot of people follow in my footsteps. I'm sure he thought that. And here we are.
Our only way to orbit, this $60 million ride with the Russians, at least for now.
I believe we're going to have a whole host of different ways to get to space, many of them commercial. We'll always have the Soyuz.
At least until another U.S. rocket is ready, and that is years away. But the work will not stop.
We're all driven by the same thing. We want to see humans push the outer boundaries. We want to see what's out there. We want to experience what's out there.
Dan Burbank and his crew will be attempting to keep the station manned and get it back on track to a full crew. That only comes with a successful launch in the next 5 hours. In Baikonur, Kazakhstan, Jeremy Desel, KHOU 11 News.
And an American astronaut is on board for the first time since NASA retired the shuttle program.
The Soyuz rocket blasted off from Kazakhstan early this morning, Russian time. KHOU 11 News reporter Jeremy Desel was there.
Still snowing quite a bit.
From remote cameras, the launch area is clear, not from the viewing location. Russian media say it's never snowed like this on a launch day.
I mean, you can't see much, so you're listening to the intercom and listening to what's going on. So
Johnson Space Center employee John McBride and the rest of the Houston team hear it before they see it. Then, like a flash, it is up.
They head toward the International Space Station.
Clear as day on the remote cameras. Far from it here.
420.
The NASA crew crowd together not for warmth, but for translation. Out of sight here.
Is running as expected.
But a powerful view to Burbank family friend Brian McKay.
That's great. Worth it. Worth it, worth it, worth it. Great time. Neat to see that thing go.
As Russian and NASA cameras capture the capsule racing to space, the NASA crew here depends on old-fashioned play-by-play.
Pitch, yaw, and roll are nominal.
They're blind to the ascent, faces etched in worry and wonder.
The vehicle is stable.
Until orbit.
Spacecraft separation confirmed.
Right.
Vehicle is in orbit.
But full relief will have to wait.
4 months, specifically for Dan. So when they get it, you know, the greatest thing is when they're back in the office, back home, safe and sound with their family. That's when I breathe a sigh of relief, actually.
But this is an historic start. At the Baikonur Cosmodrome, Jeremy Desel, KHOU.
KHOU 11 News reporter Jeremy Desel is in Russia to show us what it took to get him ready for the trip to space in a Russian rocket.
I'm Jeremy Desel in Moscow, Russia. There was a time not that long ago when someone American just standing here near the center of Moscow would not have been allowed. But now it's cooperation between Russians and Americans that's key to the space program. Anytime you're far from home, there are little things you miss.
I think we were talking about Mexican food.
For NASA astronaut Mark Polanski, it's been 2 years since he and his family came here from Clear Lake to lead our space program in Russia.
I think we were talking about Mexican food. So yeah, it's there are definitely things amongst others. Mexican food is right up there, but there are a lot of things. You know, I mean, being an American, you have certain idiosyncrasies and things that you like that you don't get here. But there are also a lot of very unique aspects to living here that you never would have dreamed that you've gotten to see in your lifetime.
So this is the typical...
It is a place where history hits you at every turn. This is the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, where Russians have always trained, now where NASA's astronauts flying Soyuz train too.
This pool is 12 meters deep.
All aspects of training are here, from the Russian water training tank like the one in Clear Lake to a centrifuge that can simulate up to 30 Gs. It's where astronauts Dan Burbank, Mike Fossum, and all NASA Soyuz flyers have worked. Unlike the Cold War or space race eras, space now does not mean distance. It means closeness.
Not only is it about humans reaching out, but it's about us all reaching out together as a planet.
Jeremy Desel, KHOU 11 News.
Now to America's return to space aboard a Russian Soyuz capsule.
It docked overnight at the International Space Station, adding 3 crew members to the 3 already in orbit.
KHOU 11 News reporter Jeremy Desel watched it happen from inside Russia's mission control.
You get a feeling immediately just walking into the room, and it's not just when it's the first time. Melanie Saunders is Associate Director of the Johnson Space Center in Houston. She's been here plenty. It hits every time.
The history of the Soviet Union and the U.S. in the Cold War, the history of how many years of working together it's taken to get to the point where we really feel like we are part of the same family.
Contact has been confirmed.
Cooperation that culminates in the docking.
Confirm the mechanical capture.
First of all, I would like to congratulate us all with the successful completion of the dynamic operation docking.
And 2 hours later, the hatch opening that unites the crew of the space station at a time when it was being prepared to be abandoned. Celebration all around.
You see the proof, which is all 6 crew on orbit, all of them healthy, all of them ready to go do the real work that they've got to do on board Space Station. Is a tremendous.
This will be the fastest turnaround in recent memory, just 4 days before Mike Fossum heads back to Earth in Soyuz. The work is not just in space.
Even as we speak down at Baikonur, the technicians are preparing even the next Soyuz spacecraft for launching in 4 weeks.
Not much time for celebration, but on orbit, they'll make time.
It just marks, how global this effort all is.
Covering the Earth, leadership from home.
We do treasure this unique experience and our ability to bring the images from here back to you, an experience that very, very few people ever get to have. Near Moscow, Russia, at the Russian Mission Control Center, I'm Jeremy Desel, KHOU 11 News.